So, okay, now that we're in the pandemic and, we've sort of heard of how the new health and safety protocols have affected office space. You don't have a lot of bodies in industrial properties, in the same form as an call center. How are the new protocols affecting industrial properties?
Well, the protocols around access and focus on making sure that you maintain a safe work environment in your facility apply in the same way, I think, as they would in any other operation, call center or otherwise. In the manufacturing and distributions up sections where folks aren't sitting necessarily in one area side by side all day long, you still have people operating on warehouse floors who pass and who have to interact. And the focus is really on ensuring that the protocols as it relates to sanitation upon arrival at the facility, constant hand washing and safe distancing, even while on the operation floor, obtained. I don't think we're unique in that regard. When you look at operations like food handling facilities, let's say you're in the manufacturing of food products, there have always been very stringent sanitation protocols in place. So manufacturing plants that deal with raw meat, for example, or dairy product, would have to be physically constructed in a way that forces the adherence to sanitation systems before getting into the building. So now all of us are accustomed to having a hand sanitizer on the wall when you go into an office, but in a manufacturing meat plant, you'd have a physical corridor, which would effectively be a sanitation corridor that you'd have to pass through, and you apply all the protocols there, from hand washing to foot cleaning. You walk through a bath with disinfectant before you can actually access the building. So those protocols remain. I think what COVID has done, it's just heightened the focus on ensuring that you have 100% compliance right across.
Similar to how Yanni mentioned earlier that there will be growth in the IT sector and ultimately the demand for more space, office space. We're a country that imports 3 times as much as we export. We do have active manufacturers here and distributors. Do you see further growth in manufacturing and distribution industry here in Jamaica, and ultimately the need for more warehousing and other industrial type properties?
Well, what I see is, let me say that I expect the trend to continue in terms of the mix, imports versus exports. We're just a country heavily dependent on imports. I do see the need for new modern industrial properties, but not necessarily an increase in the overall amount of installed square feet required on the island. So I think we will see the replacement of numerous smaller locations by a fewer number of larger locations over time, but not necessarily an expansion or explosion in the total square foot available on the island.
Right. And in some countries, we've seen where people are going vertical, even for warehousing space. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that means greater levels of automation and even AI. Is that a possibility in Jamaica?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at what's happening now, the new builds are focused on not just expanding the footprint of the building, but also utilizing as much as the airspace as possible. So new builds now are at their eaves about 30 feet, and that's to facilitate racking solutions that can take you 6 high. I'll go back 15 years ago. A typical distribution center, for example, would stack three high. We're in a different era now, where investors in real estate, builders and operators are looking for maximum utilization of the space available, and that involves making the full use of the air above you, right? So that is definitely a trend that is in play and will continue. That is the new order of the day. When you look at even the types of material handling equipment, forklifts and pallet riders that are now produced and made available for commercial operations, they're purpose built. Most of them are designed to make greater and greater use of airspace, and they're forcing the design of new facilities to ensure that those new facilities can accommodate the equipment that's now being produced by major manufacturers around the world. You know?
Yeah, you hit the term that I was going to come to, which is purpose built. And Yanni, I wonder if that is something that too is going to affect the ICT. Well, the office space is in the ICT industry as well. If purpose built is the way to go.
Yeah, I think, when we look at the landscape and part of the reason Montego Bay grew faster than, say, Kingston and Portmore is that there was more purpose-built buildings there. And many of the call centers, rented space in and around the new Kingston area, and even in Portmore, took old supermarket spaces and things that were not normally used for a call center and turned them into call centers. And I think that when we look at the protocols, the additional space that is needed, larger buildings because of that additional space, the HVAC systems that will need to be upgraded to be able to support the COVID-19 protocols. Yes, I think that there'll be some more purpose-built buildings that'll be necessary. I mean, if you look right now, I mean, there are several of them in and around the Kingston and St. Catherine area that are being developed today, and I think that would be, a greater need as we continue to grow this industry.
Yeah. The other thing too, which you kind of touched on a bit, is technology, because I'm always curious about the telecoms infrastructure and its ability to support your industry, particularly if you're going to be doing up to 40-50% work from home going forward, as well as increasing the capacity of the space that you're already in. How do you rate, if you want to go that way, the telecoms infrastructure in Jamaica?
So, look, we the first thing we do is we always blame our utility companies, whether it be Power Light or Telco. No one could ever have planned for more than 50% of the entire Jamaican workforce to be at home and schools to be at home. So we've certainly seen our issues, but that's not a direct knock against the telcos. What I would say is that, and when we had our initial chat the other day to today, I actually was given some information is that Flow has actually worked on a BPO package where they would be able to distribute consistent internet at a certain megabit per second for BPO workers at a fixed price once we give them the address of the employee. So that is a great move on their part to further support the industry and to support work at home in Jamaica. As I said before, that is a part of our life right now for more than the foreseeable future.
Good. Now, you also have operations in other parts of the Caribbean, Canada and Mexico. What's been the experience you've seen there, and how does that compare with your experience here in Jamaica?
Jamaica has done a phenomenal job. Yes, we saw a temporary shutdown of the industry, which hurt. But the way that we've been able to rise out of it and to have special provisions for essential workers in specific industries that were in dire need to our clients is far greater than what we see in other countries. I mean, we've seen a complete lockdown in the Bahamas. We've seen a complete lockdown in Mexico. Luckily, St. Lucia, we just opened in July, but St. Lucia has no active cases. So while we are operating St. Lucia under the protocols that we've agreed with the Ministry of Health in Jamaica, there are no active cases there. But truthfully, the way that the government has managed the pandemic on a whole, and in specific to our industry, I would say that they've done a phenomenal job and far greater than some of the other countries that we operate in and that we continue to monitor, because either we want to invest there or they are direct competitors in Jamaica.
But it also feeds opportunity to Jamaica because of how they've managed, particularly in your sector, that you've managed to have a model of work from home and being in the office successfully without having to, completely shut down your operations.
Absolutely, that won't go unnoticed by the global industry, and that is part of the reason why I say we have the opportunity to continue to grow here in Jamaica because of that. People have seen where the public and the private partnerships have worked to maintain safety for the nationals and ourselves, but to keep the economy going, so that we don't have a greater disaster during and after the pandemic.
Right. Jermaine, what I'm hearing from both Yanni and from Stanley is that the way forward is purpose-built construction for office and industrial properties. But we already have a stock of inventory that is there, that is 40, 50, 60 years old. What is likely to happen with that inventory?
Well, most naturally, there's going to be retrofitting, there's going to be redevelopment, because a lot of our stock is due for redevelopment right now. Some, as we can see around Kingston, the size that would have been considered a large office building 15, 20 years ago, it's pretty small right now, as Stanley had pointed out on the other side for industrial property, but it applies for commercial offices as well. So, if you look in New Kingston, you see what's happening at the New Kingston Business Center that is being expanded. And then the newer buildings on Halfway Tree Road, 76 Halfway Tree Road, 50 Halfway Tree Road, these are huge buildings in comparison to what was before.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the redevelopment, though, I think will be focused on downtown Kingston. Because a lot of those structures are pretty old and the functionalities are limited. And to prosper in this business, they will need reinvestment.
Right.
Serious capital expenditures.
Yeah. How do you see industrial properties retrofitting? Because as I mentioned with office, there are two spectrums. There's very large warehouses. Is there a lot of inventory or demand for smaller warehouses?
Well, yes, I think with what's happening now as a result of the pandemic, with a lot of particularly retail activities moving in the virtual space online, they will need the storage spaces and not as large spaces as Stanley would be more familiar with, but small and manageable, affordable spaces.
Yeah.
So that's a key area to tap in.
What's that small? What size is that?
I would say approximately 2,000 square feet and between the 2,000 3,000 square feet band.
Right, and scalable.
Yeah, most definitely.